Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 181st episode of the Simple Sophisticate. Welcome to today's episode. Today we're talking about contentment. But before I get to today's content, I wanted to let you know what today's petit plaisir is. It is a delicious, I would even say almost tastes like it's decadent snack. And it's oh so simple to make. In fact, I received the recipe, a random interaction at a farmer's market a couple weeks ago, and the gentleman just shared me this recipe, and I had to go home and try it, and I did, and I'm so glad I did. I've been nibbling on this snack ever since, and I want to share it with you because, well, why not? It's a petit plaisir, and I think you're going to love it. So stay tuned, and I will share with you that recipe at the end of today's episode. But let's get to today's topic. We're talking about contentment and the importance of finding contentment. And today I'm going to share with you 8 ways as to where and how to find it and bring it into your life. And this entire episode was inspired by a quote I came across that states, "There is no end of craving. Hence, contentment alone is the best way to happiness. Therefore, acquire contentment." And that quote is from Swami Sivananda. And what caught me with this quote was the craving part. That we're never going to quench cravings. They're never going to go away. Rather, it's a manner of shifting our approach to living. And I think making that shift is going to empower your life in ways you may have never thought were possible, because it is just a recognition of this truth. Recently, I overheard someone describe their weekend as boring, using the descriptor in a negative tone. And you may remember from a few years ago that I shared my thoughts on the concept of boring. In other words, I think boring's kind of cool. So I'll provide a link to that in today's show notes. But being someone who revels in what outsiders consider boring behavior, such as reveling in the responsibilities of the tasks I have chosen for my life, being a doggy mama, tending to my sanctuary, being the chef of my appetite, always stepping into that kitchen and trying new things and trying old things and just, enjoying eating. I was sitting there talking with this person, so I inquired as to what she did that was so boring, that made it so boring. And without going into any specifics, it was a weekend at home without demands on this person's time, permitting them to mosey about and just have free range to do as they pleased. As many of you may be, I was smiling when I heard this. Such a weekend sounds truly glorious to me. I don't know about you, but that sounds fantastic. Our everydays, our stay-at-home weekends make up the majority of our lives. I mean, it depends on our lifestyle, but for the most part, if you're living simply luxuriously, you probably are someone who travels when you can, and you may love doing it, but you are making a home in a town or a community or an area, and you're trying to make that everyday extraordinary, which is absolutely possible, which is what living simply luxuriously is all about. The underlying premise of that approach to living life is to recognize how powerful those everydays can be. That there doesn't have to be a grand celebration of momentous success every single day, or grand good news, or unexpected bonuses. That doesn't have to happen every day for us to appreciate the life that we get to live. Instead, it's a choice to appreciate the simple moments that we have constructed into our everyday routines. As the quote I shared earlier states, the cravings will always try to place themselves at the forefront of our minds. We are inundated with marketers, even fellow friends and family, but our culture as well, which ever nudges us to do more, be more, see more, and acquire more. So long as we can recognize this bombardment and not fall prey to it, we will open the door to observing how magnificent contentment can be. And the magnificent realization is that contentment can be found in every day that we live. Thus, happiness, and my term for it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, and I'll provide a link to my conversation on happiness. I like to call it joy instead, can be found readily at our fingertips no matter how outstanding or lack thereof our lives look to the outside world. So, how and why can we seek contentment? Number one, develop a health routine you enjoy. From the exercise regimen you embark on throughout your week, is it a class with an instructor that soothes your mind or inspires you to sweat more than you could do on your own, or a peaceful weekly kayak outing down the nearby river? Maybe even a meditation routine each morning that sets the tone for the day. To your approach to eating, making grocery shopping an experience to dazzle your taste buds, explore seasonal produce, try new recipes, cook with excitement, and your food and those you share with will feel and enjoy it more than you might imagine. So number one is simply to develop a health routine that you enjoy, whether it's the food you eat, exercise you do. Create these regular routines that are not drudgeries, but things you look forward to. Number two, say hello to nature. Feed the birds. Stop and gaze about on your walk. Stop and sit on a stump while outdoors and just close your eyes and soak up the sun. Water an indoor plant. Welcome an orchid into your home. Nature is magnificent, and sometimes we forget about this. But when we stop and remember and take it in, it can truly ground us to what is possible and what is important. Number three, create an end of the day winding down routine. Designing an evening routine is something you will not only look forward to as your day at work or outside of your home begins to unwind, but it will also ensure that something is within your control, no matter how harried the day may have been. And if the day was spectacular, your beloved routine for the evening will be an additional bonus of goodness. I shared a glimpse of my evening routine in a previous blog post, and I'll provide a link to that on the show notes if you'd like to take a look at that. Number four, design opportunities for experiences rather than time to buy more things. Whenever a day or even an afternoon presents itself in which a movie will be showing that I am eager to see, I plan the afternoon around that experience. Not only do I go see the movie, but I plan the before and the after as a date with myself to just enjoy the outing all the more. Now, if you're someone who enjoys doing that with a friend or a group of friends, design it so that it's not just the movie, it's an outing. Maybe afterwards I will bring a journal and I'll head to a local coffee shop if I go to see a matinee or enjoy a nice lunch before heading to the theater. Recently, when I was visiting a good friend in Eugene, we went for a short walk when the rain abated and then sat down for tea with her neighbor and just caught up while the rain returned. Afterwards, I took out my book and just relaxed until it was time for the dinner party that had been prearranged. So as you can see, create opportunities for experience. Time to relax, time to engage, and time to simply enjoy and let go of time. You know what fills you up, what you enjoy. Keep that in mind. My days were designed from what I enjoy, what fills me up, a balance that involves being engaged with other people, but also time to myself. Whatever works for you, design opportunities for experiences that involve time to do and experience these wonderful moments rather than buying more things. So that's number four. All right, I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce you to today's episode's sponsor. If you love essential oils, but the prices are sometimes a little too steep, I want to introduce you to Simply Earth. You can ditch the chemicals, you can have fun, and save money with Simply Earth's Essential Oil Recipe Box. Each box comes with 6 recipes and everything you need to make them. 4 to 5 full-size essential oil bottles, 100% goodness, all for $39. You can use an exclusive code for the Simple Sophisticate listeners, which is SIMPLE, to get a $40 gift card emailed to you after you subscribe to this fun essential oil recipe box. So visit simplyearth.com to get your exclusive discount on this wonderful opportunity. That's simplyearth.com. All right, welcome back. We have 4 more ways to bring contentment into our everyday lives. Number 5, create and design a welcoming space. Upon walking into the door of my home, I am often greeted with fresh flowers, an abundance of light filling the dining room and living room, and 2 bubbly pups excited that we have been reunited again. A dear friend of mine has curated a home in which, upon walking into her cottage, one is greeted with a pair of high-backed, tufted suede sofas engaged in conversation, or beckoning you to sit down, engage in conversation, a wood-burning fireplace, and a vast picture window that overlooks the neighborhood. I gravitate immediately to that space with her company, or on my own, just to unwind. Whether you are able to curate your entire home, or simply just a room of your own to always be welcoming, taking the effort to do so will offer priceless moments of appreciation in your everydays. So that's number 5. Create and design a welcoming space. Number 6, do something to let your mind escape from an easy reading book, an activity that is a habit which allows your mind to relax, or even a nap. Better yet, a moment of meditation. Care for your mind because it becomes exhausted too. This can also come in the form of different television programs or radio programs or podcasts that you enjoy listening to. Maybe you're doing it right now. This is a time for you to relax. Whatever it is, do something for your mind that allows it to relax regularly. This is a way to bring more contentment to your life because it slows the pace of things down. It lets you decompress and just catch your breath. So that's number 6. Do something to let your mind escape. Number 7, make progress on a project, no matter how minimal. Whether it is something as grand as completing a significant task to edge yourself ever closer to your goal, or just adding an idea to your journal to ensure you do not forget the aha moment that presented itself during your day. Do something that keeps the flames of your dreams and hopes alive. So number 7 is make progress on a project, no matter how minimal. And number 8, express love. In some form or fashion, express love to someone, something, the world in general, and it means you are capable and comfortable doing. Part of the reason I know living on my own for so long has been a breath of fresh air is because I do have the opportunity to express love to my dogs, to make their lives happier and more enjoyable, and see the glee on their faces when we go for a walk. As well, giving to your neighbors, sending an email to someone who danced across your mind and you wanted to say hello. No matter how seemingly small or large, exhale love and you will always be able to feel it around you. So number 8, express love. At the core of cultivating contentment is you and how you choose to go about your days with the choices you make, the attitude you bring to each moment, and the flow your daily life takes no matter what the outside world may expect or desire from you. While we may want happiness and crave it, as the quote that began today's episode states, that craving is always going to be there. More happiness, more happiness. You can do more, you can have more. The truth is, happiness is something outside of ourselves, and it is the contentment that we build into our lives that's within us, how we, like I said, go about our day, the choices we make, the attitude we bring, that provokes more and more moments of potential happiness to be savored. But even if we don't have control of when those outside moments are going to burst into our lives to bring even more aha moments, we can cultivate contentment within ourselves every single day. For today's show notes, visit the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 181. And I'm going to include 4 other episode links and post links about the topic of contentment that I think you might be interested. So feel free to stop by the show notes to check those out to dive deeper into this topic. All right. Now, I'll be right back with this week's Petit Plaisir. All right, so this week's Petit Plaisir came about 2 weeks ago when I was in Eugene, Oregon, visiting a good friend. And I was on my way home and I stopped at a farmer's market. And in Oregon, we have the filbert. The nut, the filbert, is Oregon's nut, as I like to call it. And it's also known as the hazelnut. Okay, so I realize that filbert is not the most widely known name for the hazelnut, but we call it the filbert here in Oregon. And they had a huge crate of these filberts. You don't see that very often. You may see them in bags at Trader Joe's, but you don't see so many filberts in one spot unless you're in Willamette Valley, which is where I was, about 3 hours away from Bend. And so I'm thinking to myself, I've got to figure out what to do with them. And if you follow me on Instagram stories, I even took a picture of them, a couple pictures, and I said, okay, what do I do with them? Anybody help? And it just so happens I'm sitting there staring at this huge, I would say 4x4, maybe 5x5 cardboard box that's about 4 feet deep or 5 feet deep as well. Not 5. Well, no, it's 4 feet deep. Just full of these guys. And this gentleman's there scooping up a bunch. And he can tell I'm kind of bewildered and overwhelmed and excited at the same time. And he says, what are you going to do with them? And I said, I do not know, but I know I have to have some because I'm just passing through and, I don't get this opportunity very often. He's like, started talking to me and he said, I used to own an entire orchard of filbert trees. And I said, oh, and he's like, I just sold that property recently, but I have a recipe I'd like to share with you. And I said, oh, are you sure? He's like, and he even called it his secret recipe. And I said, are you sure you want to share this secret recipe with me? I mean, that means it's not secret anymore. I had to say that. I mean, of course I'm excited for it. He shared away. And that's the recipe I'm going to share with you. His wife came over and she said, are you sharing the secret recipe? And he did. And she just kind of said, whatever. And I got the recipe and it's very simple. What it does is add a lot of flavor. And initially I was kind of hesitant, but it turned out delicious. If you've ever had the candy or the chocolate Ferrero Rocher, they are those chocolate balls that have the roasted hazelnut inside with a chocolate wafer. They just basically melt in your mouth. Well, this is what you're going to do. You're going to roast these filberts, these hazelnuts, and they're just going to melt in your mouth. You don't have the chocolate. You can always have the chocolate if you really want to. But the roasting part, I've got you covered. So it's so simple. All you have to do is get 16 ounces of shelled filberts. You can get them in the shell and crack them. That's kind of fun, actually. That's what I did. That first time I got a bag of actual shelled nuts and sat down one evening and just cracked nuts. It was kind of therapeutic. Anyway, so 16 ounces of shelled filberts, and you're going to put them in a bowl, and you're going to marinate them in soy sauce and olive oil. Now, you may initially be thinking, soy sauce? I don't want soy sauce on my filberts. What you're doing is infusing it with salt, sodium. And so pick the top quality soy sauce you want. I just use Kikkoman. So, and it tastes fantastic. But use a half a cup of soy sauce and then add about 2 cups of extra virgin olive oil. You may have to add a little bit more. What you're basically wanting to do is make sure they're all covered. And so it becomes kind of like a soup of filberts. So you might have to add a bit more than 2 cups, but that's the idea. But at least a half a cup of soy sauce, and then you can always add more olive oil. And you're going to let them marinate for about 3 or 4 hours. Just put them on the counter, set them aside. Don't necessarily have to cover it or anything. Overnight's best. The longer, the better. But just set them aside to marinate. Then when you're ready, you're going to preheat your oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, he even told me 275 would work all the way up to 325. So it depends on your oven. Why not go right in the middle, which is what I've done, and it worked beautifully. And you're going to take the filberts out of their marinade, and you're going to lay them one layer on a parchment-lined baking sheet. And bake them for 20 to 30 minutes. And when you take them out, I would err on the side of more time. Take them out after 30 minutes and just let them cool. You do not want to eat them hot. You want to let all the flavors kind of settle. This was even his recommendation to me. Let them cool. I'm like, okay, will do. Did that. Let them cool. And then I put them into my mouth and they just melt into your mouth. And the flavor of that salt with the nice buttery, nutty flavor of the filbert. I mean, it's just like candy without the sweets. So if you're in the mood for some nut snacks, but you don't want to do a ton of work and you want something different than almonds, because that's something that I'm always eating, this might just quench that craving. The recipe link is on the show notes, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 181. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each Monday's podcast, where I'll recommend a book, a film, or a recipe. Anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. Now, before I wrap up today, I want to take a moment to thank a few people who took the time to leave lovely and kind and generous reviews about the podcast. This one comes from Venti Iced Chai with a Shot, and they share, 2 years ago, I moved out of my parents' home and into my own apartment. My transition to full-blown adulthood was less than graceful. Finding the Simple Sophisticate that year helped me tremendously. Every Monday is my own personal life coaching session with Shannon. She has helped me not only to edit my closet and stock my kitchen, but given me guidance in living independently, to set personal boundaries, and to create a self-care routine for a highly sensitive person without feeling guilty about it. Shannon has inspired me to pursue my own passion project and to live an authentic life, taking time to appreciate simple pleasures. I'm definitely still learning, and I can't thank Shannon enough for empowering me in the discovery of the woman I want to be. Thank you very much for taking us on your journey there for a minute. And I have no doubt, based on what you shared there, that you're already well on your way to exactly the woman you want to be. I have one more review I want to share with you. This is from A.M. Rogers, and they wrote, I started listening to this podcast a year ago. I mostly listen while I clean my house. Though I'm not so much into France, I love the lifestyle advice. I look forward to Monday just for a new podcast from the Simple Sophisticate. Thank you. And I want to thank you for taking the time. And I know my inspiration does come from my love of the French culture, but that's the beauty of inspiration. It can come from anywhere, and then we can take it and apply it to whatever style of life we want to live. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, it helps us out so much if you leave a review, even just the starred reviews, where you can just click 3, 4, 5, or whatever it is that you feel this podcast deserves. And if you have some more time, we would love to get a detailed review so that other listeners, new listeners, potential listeners, can see what it is they're going to discover when they tune in. All right, on a last business note, podcast note, it is going to be next Monday that the food blogger and cookbook author and renowned chef David Leibovitz is going to stop by, and he will be here on the podcast, episode 182. So just a reminder of what's on the calendar. I hope you have a beautiful week and a lovely start to a new month starting on Wednesday. It's November already. It's going to be a lovely holiday season. Can't you feel it? Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, stop by the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up the book, now available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon, as well as in paperback, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide. To stay caught up on the most recent episodes of the podcast, blog posts, and to receive exclusive news as well as an extra dose of inspiration to start your weekend, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's weekly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox each Friday morning to enjoy with a hot cup of tea or a hot cup of coffee. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. À la prochaine.